Crisis and opportunities in singleness. What a topic. It's not a topic I usually pick for myself, but Pablo wanted to talk about this. I wanted to get out of this. It's a very difficult topic, especially difficult in a counseling setting, especially difficult in a clinical counseling setting, especially difficult in a Christian clinical counseling setting. What do you do with a topic so big and so incomprehensible for us? Every time I pick a background for my slides, I always think about them. They inspire me. Sometimes, actually, when I'm stuck with a topic, I say, okay, stop writing the lecture and start looking at pictures. And I just go and search for different words that come into my mind or words that I struggle with. And sometimes even they don't help me. And sometimes I just go through some of these photos and trying to find something that touches me, that connects with me. And when I saw this picture, it just hit me. When I want to talk about singleness, I don't want to talk about roses and flowers and butterflies or people standing at the seashore looking out into the big nothing. I see singleness as a musician, a soloist. A soloist. What you have here is a violinist. And we don't know if this violinist has a background music to them. We don't know if they play in an ensemble or if they say they play as a soloist. You know, I think I mentioned already, I have 2 music degrees. And in music, there is always the question when you perform, am I going to do it alone as a soloist? Or am I going to do it as a group in an ensemble? Is my song alone enough? Is my music alone enough? Or do I always need harmony? And I think the best music is when you allow space for both of it. I think the question of singleness is something like music. Can we create beauty alone as a soloist? So just take this picture with you, please, as we start thinking about it. And the question is it crisis? Is it opportunity? Where is the opportunity in the crisis? The question is, where is our identity? How is it connected to love and to relationships? Our identity is how were we created to be. The potter's hand. An artist creating beauty out of nothing. So where is our identity? And it is a major question for singles. Am I really a nobody just because I'm a single? Am I really lost because I'm a single? Am I without value because I'm a single? It is a major question that haunts many who have no husbands or wives. I think a big majority of my clients are Christian singles in their 30s who come to see me, who are suffering with the question, am I going to be alone for the rest of my life? Am I really not lovable? Do I really not have any value, any treasure in me? Am I a defect? Am I somebody who is just not to his or her fullness because I don't have somebody with me, by me? And yesterday, in the pastoral track, I talked about this topic, and I said, you know, the church is really in a shortcoming with this. Because when we have singles ministries, our single ministries are usually about, let us fix you. Hope you go to this single event and find somebody. Then the single event was successful. If you didn't find anybody and you did not start dating and get married based upon our singles ministry, then our ministry wasn't good enough. Or, what is even best, our ministry is great, but you are meant to pick it. It is your fault. Is it really what singles ministry is about? And we need to ask, as counselors, we were talking about it the first day, me and my presence and my convictions when I'm sitting face to face with a single. How do I see their identity? Because God says you were created in my image. You are created in my image. And in relationship with me, you are in full. Meaningful relationships are an essential part of our identity. And by meaningful relationship, I mean meaningful relationship with God. And I think that's the basic. It is not just a part, but it is the basis of our identity. If we can have a meaningful relationship, then the reflections from God's eyes, when we look at Him, will be very different than when we look into the world's eyes. Think about what I mean by reflections. Think about looking into somebody's face who has sunglasses on. You know, I hate those sunglasses that you cannot see through. Don't you hate them? Sometimes I wonder, are they turning their eyes, or are they just halfway sleeping, or what is behind those eyes? Are they looking behind, around, and not at me, or are they looking and staring at me? You don't know. I think looking into the eyes of the world is like looking at those sunglasses. You see your reflection, but you don't really see the reality. First of all, the reflection is brown, green, or yellow, or whatever color the sunglasses are. That's not reality. But when you look into the eyes of Jesus, the eyes, not the glasses, but the eyes, if you look close enough, you can see the reflection of you in His eyes. That is real identity. I think one of the things that we need to work around as counselors and psychotherapists is, can we help them in their struggle with loneliness and in their struggle with singleness, find a meaningful relationship with the reflections of Jesus' eyes? First of all, meaningful relationship with Christ. Because many times, what I have found is that singles are running around to fix their problem because of the pressure that's on them that, come on, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. You are a problem, a confusion for us. You are a burden to us. Fix it. And they are running around on the surface without meaningful relationships. And yes, without a meaningful relationship with Christ, many times they sacrifice Christ's relationship for humanly surface relationships. You know, when we get too busy about getting our problems fixed, we get just too self-contained, too preoccupied with ourselves and our problems. So when I talk about meaningful relationship, it has two dimensions, with God and with people. And I think we, in the counseling sessions, we are one example, one experience where they can learn to have meaningful relationships. Many of them struggle with, what do I come across like to other people? And I tell the singles who I talk with, sometimes I tell them, you come across as a deep thinker. You come across as a joyful person. You come across as a peaceful person. Sometimes I will say, you know, I hear the depth of your thinking and of your beliefs, but what comes across is a surface person, and that's not who you are. You are contradictory to yourself. Is that what you would like to represent? Why do you need to hide the depth of your life? Is it fear? And being in a relationship that is safe and that is in Christ will give them an opportunity to see their shortcomings of deep relationships. I think we are there to teach them how to be in healthy, meaningful relationship. And I do encourage people, instead of having hundreds of surface, quick and fun relationships, work on developing a few, 2, 3, 4, but not much more, deep, meaningful relationships. Because those relationships we need, we were created for relationship. Because God is a relational God. What is the hallmark of meaningful relationship? And it is love. I think we need to redefine love, which I'm not going to do today, but I would encourage you to redefine love, because the word love is very foggy. It is one of the foggiest words in today's world. What is love? Is it giving all? Is it love? For singles, love often means giving it all. No boundaries, just to get it all. What is love? Because when you give all, most of the time the reason you're giving all, oh, I should move away, huh? Most of the time when you give all, it is just buying it all. And it's blackmailing yourself and blackmailing somebody else. I think we need to redefine love. We need to think about what does love in a Christ-like relationship mean. Many times I find that it is a characteristic of today's dating that by the second or third date, but no more than the fourth date, women would ask men to come up to their home and they will fix dinner, have a nice dinner evening for them. It's like jumping into the depths of a relationship because they think that's love. But is it? Getting more involved without knowing the other. What does it mean, love? I think love is sacrificial. And I think love is also protecting. Not just the other person, but myself too. True love does not depend on having a partner. True love is not from, and I'm thinking about self-love, and we Christians don't like to say that because we come very quickly to the fear that if we talk about self-love, we right away will talk about idolizing ourselves. But we need to ask this. Do we have self-acceptance and do we have self-love for ourselves? One of the hardest things for singles is to be able to love themselves. Most of the time they come to a point where they hate themselves. Because the hate says, why am I so defected that nobody would want me? Nobody would want to spend a life with me. Everybody is just passing through my relationships, through my life. I think true love is not having a partner. I think true love is having meaningful relationship. And I think we are capable of having meaningful relationships through Christ and with each other. It is interesting to see how maybe about 15 years ago, when we would talk as Christian counselors, we would talk about the necessity of relationship, of meaningful, deep relationship. Counselors from the secular dimensions would look at us like, come on, this is not psychotherapy. Get real, get more cognitive, get more with it of practical and measurable change. And 15 years later, we have all these counseling and psychotherapeutic approaches that talk about relationship. What is EFT? Relationship. What is emotion-focused therapy? It is relationship. All the relational approaches are now visible to the world. I think we could be a step of all other therapeutic approaches if we would really open our eyes to see how God intended us to be. What is the cost of singleness? Are we aware of the cost? And some of you are. Some of you were. But are we aware of what the cost of singleness? What are they paying? What does it mean to be single? See, some are called to be single. But just because they are called, they can have more peace in it. Because they know that their calling is to serve God with all their hearts and all their lives. And with total dedication, without focusing on other relationships, other, not demanding, but other, I'm looking for the word, partner relationships. I'm sorry, I'm getting tired and sometimes words just don't come into my mind. Not even in Hungarian, so bear with me, please. But you know, many of the singles did not choose to be single. I would say the majority of singles did not choose to be single. So what is it that they are experiencing? They are experiencing frustration. And how do we respond to their frustration? How do we respond to their question of why, oh God? Why, oh men? Why, oh women? Why? Why am I stuck? What's wrong with me? There is a frustration. I see how sometimes people would come to me and they would be all dedicated and saying, even now I have somebody who just recently came to see me and said, I decided I want to work on myself. I think it's time for me to really think about what can I do to have a real life partner. 42. Age 42. And I know where it's going to go. A first time total dedication, total involvement. I am present, I'm here, I'm working myself, I'm changing, I'm trying. I want to be healthier, I want to be whole, I want to be visible to God. But as time goes on, they will say, where are the results? That's the number one question that will come, that will cause frustration. I have invested it all into me, into myself, into growing. And yes, many of them want to grow in their relationship with Christ. And they are growing in the relationship in Christ. But there is a frustration. If I am getting psychologically healthier, if I am getting closer to God, where is the result? And try to tell them, oh, it doesn't work that way. Because we live in a fallen world, and not all our wishes are granted. That's the frustration. And the question for us counselors, are we standing there and saying, stand firm, because your identity is more than that? Are we there willing to hear their grief? And there is a great amount of grief in being lonely and alone. And I put loneliness there. I think many of you know that I am divorced. And I have been alone for many years. And amazing how many times people have been trying to convince me that it is good. And my answer is, no, it is not good, but I can bear it. And there is a great difference between the two. I have learned to bear it. I have learned to manage it, to live with it. Is it good? No. And don't tell me, yes, it is wonderful, and learn to live with it with joy. I learned to live with joy with God. And the gifts that He has given me, but I refuse to rejoice over my loneliness and my aloneness, whatever you want to call it. And I think we need to see the difference. Are we trying to make people be quiet and shut up and don't talk about your pain because I don't know how to fix you? And pushing rejoicing and taking it as a gift. For some, it is a gift and a calling. But for some, it is grief. It is crying. It is mourning. Crying over the dreams of having somebody with me at home. It is grieving the loss of a full house and people around the table and the dog at the door. It is grief. Are we willing to look into their tears? Are we willing to look into their tears? Or we are too eager to fix them? Because if we are too eager to fix them and we don't let them grieve, then we are hurting them. Many times just grieving will bring healing, or at least a part of healing. Are we there, and are we ready to listen to their loneliness and let them speak about their loneliness? What it feels like going to a Christian group but everybody's sitting in two, except me, I'm sitting with one. Every year I teach several marital retreats when I teach sexuality in marriage. I go to these retreats with about 25 couples. Let me tell you what 4 days look like with 25 couples. I stand there. I teach them how to love each other. I see them reconciling. I see them getting more intimate and closer. But when it comes to dinner, I have a chair alone. And I always decide as a counselor to sit with the couple. But you know, for singles, it's a quite awkward feeling. Always sit in threes. We singles hate the number 3 because it usually means 2 of them and me alone. Do we have a heart for this? Are we willing to hear it? Because I think there is a great healing when somebody looks into my eyes and says, it must be hard. You know, suddenly I go and I say, yes, but you know what, not anymore. I have thought so much about why is it so wonderful that when somebody hears my pain, I feel relieved. Why? Because if I understand it, I will know what to do with them. Get my logic? So here I am thinking, why did it relieve me that they just asked me if it was difficult for me to be alone when everybody else is in couples? And I realized, because when you don't ask the question, when you don't empathize, when you don't hear me, I feel like I have to prove myself. I have to prove my truth. That no, it is not as easy for me as it is for you. And the minute I feel heard, I feel like my truth has been set out. Not just your truth, but my truth is out there too. Then we become partners in life. It is really important that counselors, we hear the frustration, the grief, and the loneliness of singles without being too eager to fix it. What is the biblical realism? One is that we live in a broken world. And it was good to see when I saw this outline from Pablo, when I saw these points, because I was thinking, I'm going to talk about it the night before. There is a great relief in accepting reality. And the reality is that we need to learn to live with unfulfilled desires. No, we will not have it all. But see, at least allow singles to express what those desires are. Because when they can name it, it will be easier to let it go. It will be easier to accept it. But the reality is that not all our desires are fulfilled. What is acceptance and what is not? When people come and I talk with them, one of the first thing, a very common sentence that comes out of their mouths is, "Don't make me give up. Don't make me give up." And the question that I often face, and I have told many people before, accepting reality does not mean giving up. And it's something that we need to differentiate for them. Accepting your reality, it doesn't mean you give up. It means learning to live with your circumstances. Think about yesterday, if you heard me, it is being content, whatever situation I am. And with this contentment, being satisfied with Christ alone, and working for His glory, my identity in Him, that is acceptance. But it doesn't mean I give up on my desires, on my hopes. It is looking forward and saying, God, I will keep on asking you. People have asked me before, have you thought about giving up, not giving up? How long do you want to pray? Aren't you old for that? Well, first of all, I am not old. I just look old. I have told people, and I have come to my conclusion, I want to live every single day of my life for the glory of God. I want to live as singleness is my possibility to bring, my opportunity to bring heaven down here. You know, loneliness can feel like a shadow. But you know how shadows work? I cannot move because of the camera. But when you have the light source there, the further you stand away from the light source, the greater your shadow is. But the more you move under the light source, the less shadow you have. And when you are right underneath the source of light, you have no shadow. Because it would be exactly underneath you. Isn't it beautiful? So accepting it is standing under the light as close, as perfectly as I can. And that's our responsibility, to bring singles under the light so they don't see life as a huge shadow. But then not giving up means, I always say, I will pray till the last day of my life. And if God will give me somebody for a week, I will praise His name for that. And if the last day somebody will ask me, well, your prayers weren't answered, I will say, so what? I'm almost in heaven. But I encourage that you talk to singles with the acceptance and with the hope, with the prayer that, yes, God, you can answer me. Because hope is just something that energizes us. It energizes us. It moves us forward. It activates us. Getting up every morning and thinking, maybe God will answer today. I think we are called to give hope. Maybe He will answer today. And going to bed in the evening and saying, Well, he didn't answer today the way I wanted. He has blessed me with many other things, but I'm going to have a good night's sleep because maybe tomorrow. That's hope. That's not giving up. That is waiting for God to move. Accepting is not giving up. And I delight when I see people, widowed people, who are past their 70 and send me an invitation for their wedding. And I go, oh, yes, you are good, God. Beautiful. Not giving up, but living in the reality that sometimes our desires are not fulfilled, or not fulfilled when we want them to be fulfilled, but standing under the light so we have less shadows. Some pitfalls to avoid, burdens in the way. Do not idealize marriage, because happiness is not linked to marriage. If it would be, we wouldn't have marriage counseling. I think we Christians idealize marriage. As a matter of fact, we not just make it to be an ideal situation for a person, but we also idolize it. It has become the idol of Christianity, that if you are married, you're good, you're whole, you're quality. I told the other group yesterday that just recently I gave a lecture. A group of people invited me to talk in their small community. It was Christian couples. Couples were my age, my generation couples. Most of them married for 25, 30, 35 years. And this group of people invited me to talk about strengthening your marriage. Just to give you, I was talking about three things. Be honest. Three things in this lecture. I said, be honest, bring sacrifices, and forgive. Quite simple, right? I mean, no big deal. Honesty, sacrifice, and forgiveness. Afterwards, quite a few of them came up to me and they said, why don't you wear your wedding band? I said, because I'm not married. And they looked at me and said, you mentioned your children. I said, I'm divorced. And their question was, why didn't you tell us? I said, what difference would it make? And their answer was very simple. We would have listened to you differently. How would you know about marriage if you are not in marriage? How would you know about deep relationships if you are not in a deep relationship? Self-righteousness of the married. Watch out. Watch out. I think it's a typical approach of the church to idealize, and idolize marriage. Marriage is a gift. And you know, gifts we don't work for. We get them. It's something that we earn. It's something that we receive. Happiness is not linked to marriage. Single people often don't know this. We can be happy, even if we will never have somebody standing by us and saying, I want to be with you till death do us apart. Single people need to hear that. And we need to be present, showing them that you can have a happy life in Jesus, in deep, meaningful relationships, even when you are not married. Try to avoid the single complex. I have no idea what Pablo was thinking about the single complex, But when I was preparing for this, I was thinking, what do I see as the single complex? I see the feeling that I already have mentioned, I'm not good enough, I need to prove myself. And with that proof, I need to fix myself. So if I think about what could be in his thinking, I don't know, but I know what in my thinking single complex, it's getting more complicated. Single complex is proving and fixing. Because what I see is a lot of people, especially past 30, I see singles start running around. Christian singles having temporary relationships, including temporary sexual relationship, just to fix it. Maybe I can get him, maybe I can get her. Giving up on convictions, giving up on beliefs, just to fix it. Really, is that the solution? Can we fix something that is a gift? Can we earn a gift? Self-proof is not a conviction. It is exactly the opposite of it. It is insecurity. It is uncertainty. Instead of proving, instead of fixing, that's what we need to help them through. Also, do not isolate yourself, because singleness doesn't have to mean loneliness. I think the other danger is that many Christian singles and many singles get so disgusted by seeing all the fixer-uppers. They get so disgusted seeing running around. Sometimes they refer to it as the marketplace, the human marketplace. They say, I refuse to be out on the market. And I agree with them. I see why they say that. But then in their refusal of I refuse to be out in the market, they often fall into the opposite direction, into another trap, isolation. And they sit at home and hope for somebody to call them and say, would you go out on a date with me? And I often ask them, why? Where did they see you? You haven't been out for last month. So we are talking about two extremes. One, trying to fix it for ourselves and running around crazy, sooner the better. And the other danger is becoming isolated, becoming separated from relationships. We need meaningful relationships. Singleness doesn't have to mean loneliness. I am so thankful for my friends that some of them are married, some of them are not married. I have 4 very close friends. And I love spending time with them. I love going to my friend's house and sitting down at their table and having dinner with husband and wife and talking with them. I love when the husband stands up and says, I will leave you girls alone. And I'm like, thank you. I love calling my friends up and say, would you pray because I need your prayer? I love calling them up and saying, would you praise because there is a reason to praise? I also love going out with my single girlfriend and going on a 3-day off when we just go somewhere up in the mountains in Hungary and talk from morning till night, until one of us falls asleep, and eating out together and just walking around and having long, big conversations about nothing. You know those female conversations about nothing? And after 3 days of talking about nothing, on the way home, we still sit in the parking lot for 3 more hours because we couldn't finish it. That's being single and not isolated, single and not lonely. And we need to encourage people for that. As a matter of fact, if they are single and isolated, we can be the first step of healing when they learn to be connected to us. Giving yourself as much as you can is the best way to happiness. Again, another sentence that I had to interpret. I wonder what he meant by giving yourself as much as you can. But I think about it as self-care. Self-care. Sometimes singles overcare for themselves, but many times do not care for themselves. You know, because sadness and loneliness can make you feel like giving up. I encourage everybody, actually, I encourage all of you, as we mentioned not last night, 2 nights ago, when we were together, we started talking about filling up, remember? How do you refuel? I encourage you to come up different versions, how you can encourage others or yourself, of giving yourself as much as you can. In relationship with God, in relationship with others, and in relationship with yourself. I have a whole list of things that I can do for me. Sometimes it's just eating something that I love. Sometimes it's just creating something beautiful. Sometimes it's just nourishing not just my body, but moving, as we talked about. You know, I am surprised that in today's world, when so much is about self-care and healthy living, how ignorant we Christians are to that. I am totally shocked on that. But why? Don't we preach that our body is the temple of God, or do we teach it only when it comes to drugs and smoking and alcohol? How come if we are wanting to forbid something, we say, oh, your body is the temple of God? But if it is, why don't you give the positive to it? Why does it become a sin to take care of your body? Why? When you start loving yourself and nourishing yourself and taking care of yourself, what you're actually saying, my body was created by God. He delights in me. He delights who He created, not just the way what is inside, not just my spirit, not just my thinking, not just my feelings, not just my convictions, but my body. Now, that's quite a question for a single person, because single people often feel that it is my body that is rejected. It is my looks that is rejected. So giving yourself and encouraging them to give themselves as much as they can is one of the best ways to happiness. Do not look to the past to regret lost opportunities, but to be thankful. I wonder, did he look up my lecture? But he could have not. I loved seeing this. If I look back at my past and I start grieving, and sometimes Satan comes in and says, if you would have tried this and this for your marriage, maybe you could have saved it. If you would have picked another person, if you would have done this, if you would have changed this, if, only if, would have. You know the result of it? It is beating up on myself. It is beating up on myself. It is depression. It is anxiety. It is unrelievable grief. So good to hear God say, I am the God of new beginnings. There is no other religion in the world where God offers new beginnings. It is only our God, the living God in Jesus Christ, who offers new beginnings. Looking back at the past, we may take lessons from it, but shouldn't be beating up on ourselves. the only way we should look back, God, thank you for teaching me through my past. Thank you for teaching me through my past. So let's see some specific lesson. One of it is learn to give thanks, not for every situation, but in any situation. Many Christians grieve the statement of give thanks for everything. Give thanks for all your pain and suffering. But see, it is not the plan of God for you to suffer and be in pain. It is the result of the fallen world. And we need to differentiate to give thanks in any situation, but not for every situation. So when singles will ask you, are you telling me to give thanks for being lonely? I would ask them, do you feel you are called to be alone? If they say yes, I will say, yeah, give thanks. It's a special calling, which very few get. But if they say, no, I don't feel called, I am in pain, I don't like it, I don't want to live like this, then encourage them to give thanks for God to be present in their darkness, but not for being in the darkness. You know, way too often our prayer is, God, deliver me from the darkness. I have learned to pray a little different. God, show me yourself in the darkness. You know, darkness can be a real meeting place with God. And in our offices and in our counseling settings, people come who are sitting in great darkness. On top of it, their darkness is very cold and foggy. Many times I invite Jesus to sit with us in the darkness. I encourage them, don't run out of your darkness. Stop for a minute and say, Jesus, where are you? Show me yourself, so I can give thanks for your presence in the darkness, but not for the darkness. Learn to make most out of your freedom. You know, I have to admit, there are benefits to singleness. And I think if we don't show this to singles, then we are lying to them, because we only see the lonely part, the unfulfilled desires. But sometimes being single means being free for whatever I can do, whatever I want to do. It sometimes means I don't have to come to compromises because my decision is the only decision. Sometimes it means I can go to an opera and I don't have to wonder if he likes the opera or not. You know, sometimes it means the thermostat is set according to my desires and not his desires. There are benefits of singleness. And the question is, do we find them beyond the thermostat? Do we find them? Are we making the most out of it? I encourage people who are single to make the most out of their singleness. They can really serve God with full energy, full time, fuller time, because they have nothing else to worry about, to compromise time and energy with, but themselves. There are great benefits to it. There are parts of it which is freedom, and using it for ministry, for service, for relationships, for ourselves is a blessing. something that we don't often talk about, because again, it is connected with the idealized and idolized marriage. Often people are afraid that in the minute I will say that there is freedom in singleness, they will say, oh, don't say this. It makes marriage sound less. But marriage has problems. Marriage has confusions. Marriage brings different kind of sacrifices. Learn that the antidote of loneliness is friendship and not marriage. I think that's a wonderful statement. I think that's a healing statement. The opposite, the antidote of loneliness is not marriage. It is friendship. And maybe that friendship one day, one of them can turn into marriage. If we want to help people who are singles, I think what we need to bring them to is relationship and friendships. Learn to be proactive, not merely reactive in your relationships. I think one of the mistakes of singles is often that they get so buried with their singleness that they start living with the expectation of others to serve them. Does it make sense? They start living with the expectation that you should feel and hear my pain and feel sorry for me and start doing things for me. I think it's a mistake. That is being just reactive. Also, being reactive is if you approach me for a friendship, for a relationship, then I will respond. Otherwise, I will not reach out to you. That's reactive. I think it's a very good lesson that we can encourage single people to be proactive. And not just for marriage and finding the partner, but for friendships. Step out. Learn to fix your eyes on Jesus as you run the race marked for you. Stand under the light. You were made to display the all-satisfying beauty and greatness of God by savoring Him as the supreme treasure of your life. How beautiful. We were made to display the all-satisfying beauty and the all-satisfying greatness of God by savoring Him as the supreme treasure of your life. I don't know if you can see, there is a beautiful grape there. Do you see the grapes there? And I was thinking, I love grapes. And especially I like this dark blue grape that when you bite into, you can actually smell it. It just, you can indulge in it. And I'm thinking, this is what we were created, indulging in the beauty and greatness of God. And when we start indulging in it, when single people start indulging in the beauty of God, the shadows start to be smaller. One thing God has spoken, two things I have heard. Power belongs to you, God, and with you, Lord, is unfailing love. True fulfillment, true comfort, true hope is standing under the light, savoring His beauty, savoring His power, indulging in His unfailing love. And then your music, whether it is a solo or whether it is an ensemble music, will be delight for you as well as your audience.